This is that shelf tour I was talking about. In lieu of making a resolutions video for 2013, I just kind of wanted to take a look at the amount of books that I had in the house that I hadn't read, and the majority of those were adult books. So I tend to be buying a lot more adult books and not reading them. Not good. So this shelf represents the books that I'm going to read over the next year. I made this easy on myself because I chose the books that I'm really interested in rather than the ones that I kind of picked up based on cover or whatever. So it should be easier to follow through with this goal, I would think. Let's get started. The first book is Alan Bradley's The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie. Not a fan of this cover. It's the UK edition. But I hear great things about the protagonist of this book, Flavia Deleuze. She's a child sleuth, and it should be pretty exciting. I'm currently reading Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, which is a very dark take on the deterioration of a marriage. The wife goes missing pretty early on in the book, and you kind of figure out what's going on through the course of it. I'm also listening to Three Bags Full on audio. This is by Leonie Swan, and it is a mystery set in a field with the sheep doing double duty as both grazers and detectives. It's pretty fun, actually. Is The Kiss Murder by Mehmet Murat Somer. It's actually a Turkish book, and the name of the series is The Turkish Delight Mysteries. It's about a tranny detective who dresses up like Audrey Hepburn and solves mysteries. This is given to me by a friend of mine. Dan Wells, I Am Not a Serial Killer. I've seen this on YA shelves as well as adult shelves, but I believe I picked this up in the adult mystery section at a Borders clearance, and I'm looking forward to getting through that. The first of the biographies I'm going to be reading is John Waters' Role Models. Definitely excited about this one. Waters is a film director and probably one of my greatest influences in terms of like fearlessness. I've talked about that a little bit before. Fearlessness in writing. The next book is by Josh Kilmer Purcell. This is I Am Not Myself These Days. Probably not giving anything away at this point. He was one of the winners of The Amazing Race, but before that was big in the New York sort of street kids scene. The first chapter of this book is absolutely hilarious, so I'm going to give it a shot. The next few are some horror books. David Wong's John Dies at the End, which is a pretty big kind of book this year. It's having a big year, actually. The movie comes out this month and looks completely crazy. You should look up the trailer on YouTube. The next book is Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan's The Strain. And I'm pretty sure everyone's heard about this book. It's the first in a series about a virus of vampirism that kind of spreads throughout New York and other places and, yeah, becomes kind of apocalyptic. Next up is Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves. This is sort of an interactive kind of horror novel. It is pretty massive, but it goes by quicker than you'd think. There's lots of weird formatting in here, pages that have like one word on them, things like that. I started to read this during a vacation and kind of freaked me out so bad it was interfering with my ability to have a good time. I plan to finish it this year. It is very disturbing from what I've read so far. The next book is The Ritual by Adam Neville. This was I did finish reading this. It's still on my shelf because it's part of my plan. This was about 4 friends from college. They've since grown up. They go camping in Sweden, and it turns out to be the worst choice they ever made. It's really disturbing, very scary. It's great. Great book. Adam Neville is the author. Dark Tower, which is the first in the Gunslinger series by Stephen King. There he is there. God, look how young he looks in this picture. I know that this is a fantasy, sort of fantasy western, and I'm looking forward to checking that one out. This next book is Lev Grossman's The Magicians. It is I've heard it described as Harry Potter with drugs and lots of sex. It takes place in more of a college type setting than sort of a high school age setting. John Connolly's The Gates is another one. This is a twisted fantasy about finding that your neighbors aren't who you think they are. This is the only classic I'm going to read this year. It's Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I am trying not to know anything about it. I'm assuming that there's a war element to it. I've heard great things about it in terms of its humor and sort of twists, and so yeah, I'm going with that. The Sleepy Hollow Family Almanac by Chris D'Agostino is sort of a twisted, humorous take on family dysfunction. You're going to see a lot of my books are kind of like that I'm going to be reading in the Lit Fic section over here. The Leftovers by Tom Perrotta. He's the author of Little Children. He also wrote Election, which was a fantastic movie with Reese Witherspoon and someone else. I can't remember. This is about sort of the rapture, but it's a comedic take on that. It's also being turned into a series for, I believe, HBO or Showtime. So I want to get to read that soon. This is Sacre Bleu by Christopher Moore. Christopher Moore is one of my favorite authors. He injects really sort of irreverent comedy into everything he does. This is a beautiful, like, dusk jacket, the picture rather than a other spine, but the maps inside are amazing. So this one's about Vincent van Gogh's friends, who are some luminaries of sort of French art scene, who want to figure out why he killed himself, or if he did in fact kill himself, and what the color blue had to do with it. I've had Geek Love by Catherine Dunn on my shelf for probably at least 15 years. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, and that it's sort of a interesting, really disturbing take on a love story. And so, oh my god, the words are tiny. Carolyn Parkhurst, The Dogs of Babel. I loved her Lost and Found. That was a book about reality show contestants, which I thought was fantastic. This is about a man who returns home to find his wife dead, and the only witness appears to be the dog, so he tries to teach the dog to speak. Strange book, but Carolyn Parkhurst is a brilliant writer, and I'm excited to get a chance to read that. Donna Tartt's The Secret History. This is set, I believe, at a boarding school, and there is a mystery element to it. It's on this end because it's supposedly much more a literary take to mystery, and I've been told that I'm going to be blown away by it, so we'll see. Matt Ruff is a local author. The blurbs call it a science fiction version of Catcher in the Rye. Very entertaining kind of stuff involving psychiatric hospitals and people who believe that they're in secret organizations to fight evil. We'll see. Cloud Atlas. This is a horrible cover of Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. And it's been made into a movie this year. It was shortlisted for the Mount Booker. Until the movie came out, I had no clue that this sort of fell into the realm of science fiction. I just knew that David Mitchell was sort of an experimental typewriter. And so I'm interested to see where this goes and what kind of twists and turns it takes. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. I read The Yiddish Policeman's Secrets something or other. I can't remember the title right now. They're always so long and drawn out kind of titles, but his writing is so beautiful. I'm a huge fan, and possibly a stalker. It's hard to say, but this is about a couple of immigrants who get into the comic book business in New York City, and it's supposed to be amazing. We will see. The last book is Stephen Hall's The Raw Shark Texts. This is another experimental book that plays with typeface, typesetting kind of stuff. In fact, here are a couple of pages from the middle of the book, which just have nothing on them. And it has lots of like diagramming and things like that in it. Yeah, on the cover here, I think you can see that there's an actual shark made up of sort of a quick blurb about the book. And that says, I do feel like you've forgotten something important. Everyone gets that. Don't worry about it. Who knows? Who knows what's going on with it? I'll also be reading Kevin Wilson's The Family Fang, another dysfunctional family kind of saga. This about performance artists, and I read the first chapter. It's really interesting, very funny, pretty irreverent take on it. My last book on the shelf, so to speak, is Richard Kadri's Sandman Slim. This one is a very sort of kind of explosive, irreverent urban fantasy book that I don't hear enough about, probably. I hear a lot about things like Charlaine Harris and stuff, but this one is a really kind of outrageous, very ballsy very violent kind of a book. And I'm excited to see what Kadri does with the genre. And that's it. What's on your shelf?